In a landmark decision issued today, U.S. District Judge Fernando Rodriguez Jr. ruled that the Trump administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act to deport Venezuelan migrants was unlawful. The decision permanently bars the federal government from invoking the 1798 wartime statute to justify the removal of individuals allegedly affiliated with the criminal syndicate Tren de Aragua, a ruling with implications that reach far beyond immigration policy. At stake in this case was not just the fate of dozens of detained Venezuelans, but the deeper question of how legal authority is constructed and how it can and cannot be used. The Alien Enemies Act was designed for a very specific purpose: to grant the executive branch limited powers over foreign nationals during periods of declared war. Its original context was the threat of European powers invading or undermining the early American Republic. The Trump administration, however, sought to apply this statute to a modern border context, arguing that the presence of alleged gang members from Venezuela constituted a national threat equivalent to that posed by a foreign enemy in wartime. In essence, they claimed that the conditions of war existed even without an actual war, and that these conditions justified invoking extraordinary executive powers. But Judge Rodriguez rejected this logic. In his ruling, he emphasized that a dangerous group does not automatically qualify as an enemy in the legal sense, and public disorder is not the same as a state of war. The administration, he found, had built its case on a selective reading of both the law and the facts. What makes this ruling more than a legal rebuke is the clarity with which it reasserts an essential principle. Government power must emerge from the alignment of three interdependent elements: legal authority, factual reality, and institutional legitimacy. These three components form what can be understood as a triadic structure of lawful action. Each one is necessary. If even one part fails, the entire justification collapses. Legal authority is the statutory or constitutional basis for acting. Factual reality is the actual condition in the world that matches what the law is designed for. Institutional legitimacy is the procedural and jurisdictional fitness of the actor to carry out the law in the way it was intended. In this case, the Alien Enemies Act does provide authority, but only under the condition of wartime or a comparable emergency involving clearly defined foreign enemies. The facts on the ground, criminal violence and immigration surges, did not match that statutory trigger, and the institutional move, using wartime logic to bypass normal due process, violated the structure of how immigration law and constitutional rights function. What the Trump administration tried to do, both here and in other recent legal strategies, was to treat one or two parts of that triad as sufficient. Their logic runs like this: if there is danger, and if the president believes action is needed, then power should follow. But that shortcut leaves out the connective tissue that makes power lawful in a constitutional system. You cannot leap from perceived threat to presidential action without anchoring both in the appropriate legal and factual conditions. If the threat doesn't legally qualify, and if the facts don't match the terms the law was written for, then no matter how urgent the situation feels, the action does not have standing. This decision reaffirms that power in a constitutional democracy is structured, not spontaneous. It does not simply emerge because something seems dangerous or politically urgent. It must pass through the full circuit of lawful authority. This triadic structure isn't unique to the Alien Enemies Act. It underlies every legitimate act of governance. Whether the issue is surveillance, military action, emergency powers, or immigration enforcement, the same rule applies. You need a valid law, applicable facts, and lawful execution. If any one leg is missing, the act fails, not merely morally but legally. In technical terms, this is a system of reversion. If the facts or legal justifications fall apart, the authority to act reverts to a state of non-power. The judge's decision enforces that reversion. It resets the system to constitutional norms. Although this case concerns a relatively obscure law and a limited set of deportation proceedings, its constitutional signal is loud and clear. Judge Rodriguez's ruling is a defense not just of immigrant rights, but of the architecture of lawful government. Human rights groups have praised the ruling for its insistence on due process, but its deeper virtue lies in restoring the full structure of legal decision-making. It tells future presidents of any party that authority must be earned through alignment, not assumed by assertion. In an age of executive shortcuts and emergency rhetoric, this ruling is a reminder: the law has a shape, and all of its angles matter.